So it seems it's time for a long-anticipated Warhammer 40K release week. Daemon Primarch Fulgrim is finally going up for pre-order alongside the rest of the Emperor's Children range, so let's talk about the releases, what's here, what's not, and some thoughts on the models, rules and likely pricing at the moment. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking Fulgrim and Emperor's Children, a big release week for Warhammer 40k. It seems that the Emperor's Children were left waiting at least a fair time between their big box release wave and then their individual kits, but it's finally the day apparently. Pre-orders will apparently be going live on Saturday the 12th of April, so that'll be a full release in stores around the 26th of April. Release-wise, I don't think there's any major surprises here. There's Codex Emperor's Children and the limited edition version with the fancy Chaos metal tokens and things, the dice and the datasheet cards for them, Daemon Primarch Fulgrim himself, there are 3 special characters in Lucius the Eternal, the Lord Exultant and Lord Kakophonist, the Flawless Blades, Tormentors and Infactors and the Noise Marines, and then the tie-in current setting novel for Fulgrim's release with the Perfect Son book. 4 notable absences, the Combat Patrol box set isn't here. That's often been what Games Workshop's done when it's got new models in it and not released it until later. I guess so it doesn't undermine the sales of the Flawless Blades kits that they have, though it does mean that if you wanted to get that deal you might have to hang on a little bit longer. Otherwise it doesn't look like the other deity codexes have shown up yet, so it's perhaps kind of fortunate they're not doing literally the entire Pantheon of Chaos in one enormous weekend. I still wouldn't be too surprised though if we find all those 3 books turn up for another massive release weekend sometime later. Certainly a busy time for people looking to start the faction, particularly people who bought the Champions of Slaanesh box set. It also means their points will now go tournament live, and they'll start to be used in big events around the world. Currently at time of recording it looks like prices are yet to be revealed. I'll talk through them when they do get circulated though. For most of the models we've got a pretty good idea as to what they might cost. Maybe one of the biggest questions would be if Games Workshop decides to change the prices on this release wave due to tariffs or anything, or whether that'd be too early for them to think about doing that. As always, if you're looking to pick up any of the kits going up for pre-order at a discount and to help support Warspecs Tactics videos while you do so, there's a whole bunch of discount retailers linked down in the video description, all of which should have good numbers of the pre-order items depending on how many Games Workshop decides to circulate to the stores that want them. There's Element Games in the UK for 15% off, Gap Games in Australia for 21%, Feminist Workshop in Canada for 10%, Wargame Portal in the USA for 15%, and Tash and Galdeep for 16% in the EU. As ever, a big thank you to anyone who picks up Warhammer 40k things through those links or any other hobby supplies. As often tends to be the case with these big releases, there's kind of likely to be limited supply for the discount retailers. If the launch of Lionel Johnson was anything to go by, Fulgrim could sell out really quite quickly, though that does remain to be seen. If you're certain that you do want to pick up a copy of the Daemon Primarch, I'll probably be ready to order when the stores go live. At these times on the screen here, midnight Eastern time for Wargame Portal and Fenris Workshop, that's between Friday night to Saturday morning. 10 AM in the UK for Element Games, 11 for Tash and Galdeep, and midday Australian Eastern Time for Gap Games. Hopefully Games Workshop will have made enough copies of him and they don't sell out in literal seconds like Lionel Johnson did. Finally, for other potential releases or re-releases, I thought it was just worth mentioning that the Champions of Slaanesh box set itself does appear to be both in stock in Element Games in the UK and Tash and Galdeep in Germany and the EU. I believe that Element announced their second wave of them earlier this week. For those who might have missed it the first time round, might be useful to some of you out there given how fast it sold out at Games Workshop itself. Looks like they're pricing these at £145, so no discount unfortunately, which is a bit disappointing. I believe that's due to Games Workshop charging them more for the discount box sets for the second wave of them. Tash and Galdeep in Germany still seems to have German copies of the box set going, those out of the English ones. In any case, I'll link them both in the video description. Let's get into this week's actual launches though, and first up we have Daemon Primarch Fulgrim, likely to be $170, £102 or €135. That's based on Angron and his brothers, so seems likely he'll be kind of similar there. Always a big deal when a Primarch returns to Warhammer 40k. I feel like people reacted well enough to his model, suitably or very depraved, for the rather hedonistic and degenerate Primarch of the Emperor's Children. In game, he's 385 points, and is generally considered not really to be all that strong in the Codex at the moment. I don't know if Games Workshop might lower his points cost at some point to compensate for that. He's very fast and has fights first, and will be able to beat up units that are a lower class of him, and does have a fun poison rule as well. But still just has the issue that when he inevitably does get exposed to enemy firepower, he's not really all that hard to gun down for 385 points, unless you manage to use him quite carefully, destroying things then hiding. It might be just a bit too easy to lose a huge chunk of your army in one go. Then we've got Codex Emperor's Children, £37, $60 or €47 if it's the same as most of them, which have been really quite standard for 40k so far. All the normal stuff here including unit profiles, crusade content, all their detachments and their miniature galleries and things, and they also have that option for the super fancy limited edition one with the Chaos coin magnetised bits plus the counters and their data cards and things, all in that rather cool binder. I'll certainly be interested to see the price for these ones, as I kind of suspect it's going to be astronomical. Here are the detachments available in the Codex, a very appropriate 6 of them, and they do have a small selection of Slaanesh Demons datasheets in the Codex as well, locked to that Carnival of Excess detachment. Next up, we've got Lucius the Eternal. He's likely to be $45, £28 or €35. That's based on their other named character price point. Alongside Fulgrim, it's looking like he's going to be one of the very most popular releases. An iconic character reimagined and done all rather well. Loads of combat stims, a twisted, scarred, depraved face, the armour of shrieking souls, and that lash of torment. In game, he's looking fairly strong at the moment, a fast first lone operative with a bunch of damage threat, a bunch of damage 3 attacks with precision or a sweep mode. He gets to reroll hits and wounds versus characters, monsters and walkers, which can make him just a crazy threat there, and he's surprisingly hard to kill with his toughness stats and his feel no pain. The Lord Kakophonist is the Noise Marine and apparently Terminator leader, armed with a great big Doom siren on his back, plus a pair of Screamer pistols. He's likely to be $42 or £26, the same price as more standard sort of Space Marine Captain style miniatures. He's been marked at 60 points, which seems very efficient for him. He's fairly tanky with a 2+ save, has a fair bit of general purpose shooting, and can amp up Noise Marines to be far more dangerous with sustained hits. He's generally seen as quite a nice choice. Next up, we've got the elite sort of pseudo-possessed of Slaanesh, basically filling the same sort of role as them, but instead are too selfish to share their perfect bodies apparently, and instead they're just mutated with a whole bunch of demonic boons as opposed to outright possession. They're likely to be £40, €51 or $62, that's based on the World Eater's 8 bound. They got a big points reduction going from the printed points to the digital ones, dropping down to 110, with a sort of anti-elite melee profile with bliss blades that can critical wound everything on a 3+, but at the risk of having one model slain in return if you don't kill anything. I rate them as usable enough, but generally seem to be seen as a bit mediocre for that points cost and could probably afford to drop a little bit further. Probably worth mentioning that the Combat Patrol box isn't coming this week as well, and that could be very interesting for picking up the Flawless Blades. There's Lord Exultant, a squad of the 10 troops, and then 6 of them, so that looks like it to be around about a 27% discount judging by normal Combat Patrol prices. And if you did want copies of all these units, then it could well be worth hanging on for it. Judging by past ones, they've often released sometime between 2 and 4 weeks after the main release wave has happened, so probably wouldn't be absolutely ages to wait, but still as ever a bit annoying that it hasn't launched with the rest. Next up, we've got the Lord Exultant, pretty much the standard Chaos Lord equivalent for the Emperor's Children, likely to be priced similar to the Lord Kakophonist, around £26 or $42. I feel like they're nice enough Chaos Lords that look the part. They've got quite a lot of war gear options, everything from power swords, phoenix spears, power fists, and screamer pistols, so quite a nice flexible kit as it goes. In game they look like a seriously strong choice, massive amounts of melee damage when paired with those scouting Infactors. The rerolls plus any sort of fighty character combo can make them hit incredibly hard in the midfield. They give their unit lethal hits and have a personal +3 attacks and extra AP once per game to hit extra hard. Then we've got the troops kits, the Tormentors and Infactors. Depending on whether or not you want them bolter armed or equipped with their dueling sabres, they're most likely around £40, €51 or $62. The Tormentors are the bolter-armed ones, seeing themselves as sort of peak Space Marines and better than the rest, always looking to overachieve with their objectives. It's kind of nice to see a sort of more standard legionary design just done up Emperor's Children with a whole load of Slaanesh things. And then there's the Infactors, maybe a bit more given over to hedonism and sensation, just rushing in with dueling spears to lay low the enemy, all juiced up on combat stims and not regarding the consequences. Both of the units of troops look really nice. Tormentors just seem basically auto-included to have some of for objective purposes. They can infiltrate and have sticky objectives, as well as having OC2 as well, and that kind of means they're pretty good regardless of what damage they actually do. They can bear a couple of special weapons at least. As mentioned, the Infactors seem really nice to pair with the Lord Exultant, a bunch of volume attacks in melee with strength 4 and damage 1. They reroll wound rolls of 1, and then reroll all wound rolls against enemies on objective markers, and they can confer that buff to a Lord Exultant, which can have him hit extra hard. They scout up the board as well, and that can work quite well when paired with a Rhino. Last but not least, for the main model releases, we've got the Noise Marines. Really quite a fun reimagination of their classic models, being done up more like Chaos Space Marine Havocs than standard battle line infantry now. A bit up armoured with some massive speaker grills on their backpacks, 2 equipped with Blastmasters, the rest with Sonic Blasters, and then the unit leader can take some pistols if desired. A lot of people probably already have them in fairly good numbers due to the Champions of Slaanesh box sets. I'm a little bit less certain of the pricing for these guys. Box sets of 6 are a bit more unusual for Space Marine releases. If I had to guess, I'd put them around about £42, $65 or €55. That's based on heavy intercessors, which maybe are a bit chunkier, but there's only 5 of them in the box set. I strongly suspect it'll be somewhere around this number in any case. On the battlefield, it's 135 points to field them, and they spit out some fairly general purpose shooting with ignores cover, a bunch of heavy bolter equivalent profiles with those sonic blasters, some much punchier, strength 10 and damage 3 with those blastmasters. It seems after some initial mixed reaction, people are generally quite positive about them, a good enough damage threat against a lot of targets, even if they're not going to be quite so good at taking down the very toughest stuff. Being basically the only serious shooting unit in the Emperor's Children Codex is also going to get them looked at a bit more than some perhaps. They do seem to be quite nice in the transport focused attachment if wanting to play around that too. Then for supporting releases, we've got the dice and the datasheet cards. Again, if going by their previous prices, the Emperor's Children dice have been £19, $33 or €24. It looks like their version of them this time around are all very flamboyant pink with their Legion symbol on them. And then the datasheet cards, for quick reference, tend to generally be around about £20 or $35. Finally for releases this week, we've got Fulgrim the Perfect Son. This one definitely feels a little bit more impactful than the average Warhammer 40k book release, maybe in a similar sort of way to The Lion Son of the Forest. Just interesting to get a current setting novel about a character that just really hasn't been explored almost whatsoever in the current 40k lore, at least not in novel level with him at the absolute centre of things. Apparently the story of this one is Fulgrim the Emperor's Children basically besieging a Black Templar world, and basically drawing a whole load of his sons and followers together, setting them the challenge of conquering the world, and then watching his sons compete and fight against each other for the prize. If I get a chance, I might give this one a read myself. It'll be fun to see any other twisted details of Fulgrim's character. As you can see, it also has a fancy limited edition version as well, an all very stylised Daemon Primarch Fulgrim on the front it seems, with his great big tail. In any case, certainly a really big release week for Warhammer 40k. Emperor's Children players, let me know your thoughts and plans as to what you might pick up or leave on the shelf. I look forward to hearing your takes as always, and I guess we'll wait and see whether or not Games Workshop makes enough Fulgrims to go around. As mentioned, feel free to check out the links down in the video description if you do want to pre-order any of these come Saturday. These are the times when Fulgrim and Friends go live around the world. And for anyone looking to pick up some Champions of Slaanesh in the UK or EU, feel free to check out Element Games or Tash and Geldeep linked down in the video description. As ever, a big thank you to anyone supporting the channel via those links. I'll leave this here for now though. I'll look forward to talking through the prices for the releases later in the week at some point, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see that. I do tend to keep Warhammer 40k videos coming just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.